Welcome to the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Main, awesome wife and dog mom for life. I'm a sex therapist turned sex coach, and I run a successful business selling relationship enhancement products. I absolutely love talking about all things sex. So you can expect this podcast to explore all things related to women's sexual health because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you discover and embrace what brings you pleasure so that you can own your sexual self. If that sounds good to you, then keep listening and let's fucking do this. Welcome back to another episode of Owning Your Sexual Self. I know. I have a voice of an angel. You can tell me. It's fine. I accept your compliments. The dogs are here in the office, so let's see how quiet they decide to be for today's recording. They are napping. They officially have the house back to themselves. My little sister officially moved out yesterday, got her apartment, her very first place all on her own. I'm so super proud of her. So sad to see her go, but that's all right. She is on to bigger and better things and living a life of independency, which is exactly why she left her original home anyways. So super proud of her. Anyways, yeah. So Bane, Tater, you both need to keep it cool. Keep it cool. All right. Anyways, all right. Here we go. So I recently did an interview with a woman on Instagram. You can see the interview at my_woman. It's on her IG live, so you can see it on her grid. It took place on 31st of August 2021, depending on when you're listening to this episode. And we were talking all things sexual confidence. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I literally have a fucking course called Owning, no. I have a podcast called Owning Your Sexual Self, and my signature course is called Sexual Confidence Academy. Yet I haven't done really officially an episode on exactly what sexual confidence is. So she was asking me some questions and things about sexual confidence, just in more general terms for her audience to kind of get to know a little bit better. And that kind of inspired me to do this episode. I also find that it's perfect timing because I'm getting ready to wrap up our final week of Sexual Confidence Academy, and this program, I've done several other programs, and after getting feedback and things like that from those members is really what helped me solidify and finalize Sexual Confidence Academy. So it's a little bit from each of the programs, always adding more things, always taking insight from the previous members and making it as best as I possibly can. So this has been really a delightful experience to be able to work with this group of Sexual Confidence Academy. And I'm just forever grateful, you guys. I'm so grateful that I get to do this work. I'm so grateful that I decided to take a risk on myself. When I left my full-time job and decided that I was going to try my hand at private practice sex therapy, had never worked in a clinical setting like that before doing therapy, and ultimately it led me all of those things, all of those risks, and just no fucks given and believing in myself is what led me to be where I am today. And I'm just, again, sometimes I just sit and reflect. I'm like, man, I would still be sitting in a cubicle. Like I just I can't sometimes anyways. So I'm very excited to share with you guys about sexual confidence because I think that sexual confidence is kind of a buzzword right now. You're hearing a lot of people talk about sexual confidence, and for me personally to brand myself as a sexual confidence coach, I really want to kind of just give some context around that. So with the sexual confidence, okay, here's like in layman's terms, here's what I would identify as sexual confidence. I want to be the first to say too, sexual confidence for one person is not going to be the same for the other people around them. If you listen to the recent episode that I did with Karen Freeland, we talked about, not comparing your sexual journey to anyone else's sexual journey. And that's super important to not do because jealousy is the thief of joy and comparison is the thief of joy. So when you're feeling like you're doing something really good, the last thing you want to go do is go and compare yourself to somebody else, because it's literally just going to rip that bubble of joy right from you, right? Literally, it's like a dagger to the heart and somebody's ripping your heart out of your chest. It sucks. And we've all been there, right? It's pretty normal for us to, when we are celebrating something or when somebody comes across our mind, to kind of peep on what they're doing, right? And see, like, oh, okay, okay, well, man, I'm not doing it that way. She's doing it better than I am. I can't have those things, or I don't have those things, or I'm not able to go on that vacation. It doesn't matter. I'm not able to wear that lingerie, or I could never go out in public like that, or I could never have that conversation with my partner. It's okay. You have to celebrate where you're at right now. And so when it comes to sexual confidence, just as everybody's journey is going to look different, sexual confidence again is going to mean something different for every person. And so when I answered this question during this interview, I said, in general, sexual confidence is a fucking mood. It is a vibe. It is a way that you carry yourself throughout life. And I feel like I can say those things and give you a definition of exactly what it is, and that could still mean something so different for those of you that are listening to this right now. When I say that something is a mood or something is a vibe, that's going to be different for each and every one of you. But when it comes down to sexual confidence, here are the things that I think that can contribute to someone that is looking to develop more confidence in their sexual self. And it, first and foremost, it's going to come down to the education. Being able to know the ins and outs of your body, being able to understand your desires, your wants, your needs, and then to be able to take it a step further and communicate those things effectively to a partner or partners. That's really that's really what sexual confidence comes down to. It's somebody that is able to set boundaries for themselves. They're able to speak freely and openly about the things that they want. They're able to give direction. They're able to ask for permission for things, or they're able to ask for things that they want, and they can do that without feeling shame. They can do that without doubting themselves. And sure, the feelings of scaredness, the feelings of, oh my gosh, how's this person going to react, those are going to still be there. Just recently, my husband and I, we have been talking, through and through this entire year about our choices around whether or not we plan to have children. And so we've been having some really deep conversations about what we want our future to look like, what options we have available to us, and then figuring out what options are going to be best for us. And to be able to sit down with somebody and be able to voice those concerns, be able to talk through those things, um, and speak freely, for him to be able to say, look, kids is never something that I've wanted in my life, and for me to hear that on the other end, and understand that, even though I, at points of my life, went through times where I did think that I would have children one day. We have different outlooks on this, yet we're able to again have the conversations, come up with options, and figure out what's best for us. And that's something that I know that a lot of couples struggle with, having deep conversations. If you have feelings of trust issues that are coming up, if something is inside of you speaking, that you're like, I don't know, you're kind of questioning something in the relationship, and being able to bring that up in a healthy way to your partner, not in a way that it's going to turn into a fight or an argument, that really does, that is a piece of sexual confidence. Being able to again, if you're able to target your desires and your wants and your needs in and out of the bedroom, and having that voice to be able to speak up and tell your partner, hey, I think I want to try a butt plug tonight. I think that I'm going to go out and treat myself to some new lingerie. I think that I listened to this podcast, I saw this thing on TV, and I really want us to experience this type of pleasure. Are you down for that? Right? Having conversations like that with your partner. And, with my therapy background, with my coaching background, I want to validate again, any emotion that you're feeling around sexual confidence, around your relationship, around communication, anything like that. I want to validate all of those emotions, because your emotions are real and they're there for a reason. They're trying to tell you something. So you really got to tap into those things. You got to really, again, peel back the layers and figure out, where is this emotion coming from? What belief is this emotion tied to? What is triggering me to think this way or feel this way right now? And there's just so much power behind figuring those things out for yourself. So I mentioned the word trigger. So one of the questions that I was asked during this interview too was, what are the various factors that can affect your sexual confidence? And you've probably heard me talk about this before, but one of my first things that I do in working with somebody is asking them what is their history in regards to their sexuality. How do they remember learning about sex? You know, who was the person that sat down and had that conversation with them, or was it even a conversation? Who delivered the information to them? You know, all these things play a piece. So if you think back of what your experience was way back in the day of when you first learned about sex, do the same thing with masturbation, and really think, how has that shaped your level of sexual confidence today? Was there shame placed on you? Was there a certain stigma placed on you, or were you raised to believe some sort of stereotype about sexual people or about people that displayed sexual confidence? You know, what things can you remember about your upbringing that are probably playing a factor into your adult life today when it comes to sexuality? So I would say that was the first and foremost thing, like your upbringing, how you remember learning about this, and all of that. Same thing with society, with social media, with TV and media, and any sort of media, right? Growing up, again, what messages were conveyed to you about sex, about masturbation? You know, if a sex scene came on TV, how did your parents react? Right? You know, all of these plays a huge thing. Religion is going to play a part in your level of sexual confidence. Previous relationships is going to play a part into your sexual confidence. If you have any trauma, specifically sexual trauma in your past, or if you're currently managing trauma and healing traumas in your life, that is likely going to play a part in your development of sexual confidence and your level of sexual confidence. And another thing is how you feel and how you talk to yourself. So about specifically I'm regarding your body image, or just the way, you know, think about the things that you would say to yourself or about yourself on a daily basis. Are you out there branding or you know, conveying yourself as someone that's a hot mess? Are you like, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid, or I'm so dumb, or like I could lose 20 pounds, right? If I lose 20 pounds, that's when I'll look better. That's when I'll put on the bikini, or whatever it is, you know, thinking about and catching yourself. Like, honestly, I challenge y'all that are listening to this right now, like, catch yourself and figure out how you're talking to yourself, because at this point, we do it so subconsciously. Like, it literally at this point just rolls off of our tongue, and it really isn't until you have people in your life that are going to call you out and be like, hey, can I offer you a language upgrade? Right? I have people in my life that have done that, and at first I was like, "The fuck? Like, I don't. What do you mean a language upgrade? Like, I'm gonna talk, right? I got a little defensiveness on me." But then, you know, when you're open to receiving and hearing that information from somebody, and you know, you maybe try what they're saying, it makes a difference. It really does make a difference. So there are various things that can affect somebody's sexual confidence, but that's not to say that you can't change the script for yourself. You can always make changes in your life. You just have to decide. You have to decide that you're someone that wants to have more sexual confidence. You got to decide that you're somebody that wants to be deemed and seen as somebody that is sexually confident. And how you're going to be able to display that is going to look so different too. You know, just because I'm somebody that is open and okay with posting pictures on social media of myself in lingerie, just because I choose to have an OnlyFans account where I can display my sexual confidence in a more risky way than I could on Instagram, because they would shut me down, of course. And just because I'm somebody that's open and talking about sex, and I'm open talking about my own masturbation journey and self pleasure journey, that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be able to do those things, or that you need to be doing those things to be seen as somebody sexual confident. Remember, it's a vibe, it's a mood, and at the end of the day, it's how you fucking feel. If you feel you are a sexually confident person, that's all that fucking matters. It doesn't matter if you walk into a room and somebody doesn't see you as sexually confident. Sure as shit. If I'm walking up in Kroger after a kickboxing routine, right? I just finished kickboxing, I'm a sweaty, hot ass mess, and I'm walking up into Kroger, like, there's somebody that's like, oh, girlfriend, you ever heard of a shower? Right? They're not thinking, oh my gosh, that girl is radiating sexual confidence. All right. So again, it's all about how you feel. All right. And here, so I get asked to, and this is another question that came up in the interview that I did, is how sexual confidence can play a part in your relationships. And whether or not you are in a relationship or not, your sexual confidence can play a pretty big role in your relationship. Again, it's going back to you taking the time to understand and know the ins and outs of your body, really literally what makes you tick, and what gonna turn you off. When you can take that time for yourself and you're able to really literally master your own fucking body, it is so much easier to go in and have that conversation with somebody else and literally lay out the direction manual to your pleasure for them. That is going to make such a difference in your relationship. And especially with, validating and honoring for your partner to do this too. I know I mostly have female listeners on here, but men, sexual confidence works for you too. This is something that no matter your gender or orientation, you can display sexual confidence, and there's no shame or stigmas that should be showing up around that. We have to look back to what's getting in our way of having the sexual confidence that we want. And think about it, when you're in a relationship where both partners or all partners are living this higher level of sexual confidence, and they're literally radiating that on a daily basis in and out of the bedroom, think of the difference that that could make in your relationship, in your marriage, in your partnerships. It can make all the difference. And I'll tell you, I can speak from my own personal journey on this. Being able to bring up and have conversations with my husband and asking him, about trying different things, asking him on a regular basis, ensuring that he is happy in our relationship, and asking what new things can we try this week, what new adventures can we do together this week, how can we bring more happiness into our relationship, what do you need to feel taken care of this week. Those are regular conversations that happen in our household. And for me to be able to vocalize and tell my husband in the middle of sex, like, hey, I think I want to use a butt plug tonight, and not have any shame or any like, oh shit, like how are they going to react sort of thing. Is he going to be like, okay, well, let's skip the plug and let's use the penis instead? Like, no, I know that he's going to hear me. I know that I can say it and I can vocalize the things that I want freely and openly. And at the end of the day, we each want each other to feel as much pleasure as we possibly can. So, of course, conversations like that and confidence like that shows up in our relationship. And I'll tell you again firsthand, it has made a hell of a difference in our marriage, in our sex life, in our marriage as a whole. I said this recently to somebody. I said I would literally put our marriage up against many, many other marriages out there, because the level of trust that we have in each other, the level of communication that we have, the sex that we have. I mean, there are so many things that in this past year or 2 years, we've done the work. We've been doing the work. We continue to do the work to, again, make our marriage as strong as it can possibly be. So, will your sexual confidence make a difference in your relationship? Yeah, it's pretty likely. It's pretty likely. And again, encouraging your partner to also start doing some of this work too, because you want the playing field to be level. That's only fair. So that was pretty much a nutshell of the interview. And of course, she specifically asked, how can somebody that's dealing with sexual fears, or somebody that's wanting to start this journey, like what things can they do. And definitely, she asked, can somebody like a sex coach or a sex therapist help with this? And definitely the answer is yes. Somebody that has training and a background like myself, we know the questions to ask, we know the challenges to pose, we know the exercises to give you to be able to help you unlock this feeling in yourself, this vibe, this mood that so many of us are craving right now. So, Anyways, I wanted to, again, I realized I hadn't done an episode on sexual confidence in ever really. I've talked about sexual confidence on here, but to have an episode, just 100% on sexual confidence, I felt like that was lacking. So, again, if you're someone that's listening and you are wanting to take a step towards sexual confidence, if you want to start peeling back the layers of this, I'm going to give you something to try. As I said, one of the very first things that I do with the people that I start working with is I have them journal their beliefs and their feelings around sexuality and around masturbation, self-pleasure, however you want to refer to it as. Okay. So if you're listening to this podcast, one thing that you can do to take it a step further and kind of start your own sexual confidence journey is start with these journal prompts. Okay. If I were to ask you, what do you remember about the time when you learned about sex? That's it. Sit down and start journaling about this. All right. I remember that it was after we were watching something came on TV and my parents covered my eyes. And then the next day after dinner, my mom came into my room and sat me down in my bed and, kind of did like a birds and the bees sort of talk and, fill in the blank. Or maybe you remember learning about sex because you saw porn on TV or you saw a sex scene on TV and you kind of just figured it out. Maybe a friend told you. Maybe it was like high school or middle school sex ed when you learned. But really, really, really thinking back and journaling this out, journaling all of the details that you can remember about that experience, about learning about sex. All right. And then the same thing with self pleasure, masturbation, orgasm, even. If you think about when you're watching sex scenes and stuff, or if you see something, of a girl or a man masturbating on a TV show or something like that, and you're a young kid, you might not necessarily understand what it was at the time. So think specifically, was there anybody that taught you about masturbation? Had talks about sex toys with you, or, showed you or told you about your clitoris or your penis or what it meant. If you're a man listening to this and, do you have memories of when your parents, because likely as a small child, you were getting erections, boners, and, what was that conversation like? How did your parents talk to you about what that was? Or, did you get sent to your room? Was there any shame around that? If your parents growing up found your socks because you were masturbating into them, and, did you get yelled at for that? Right? Like those sort of things. That's what I want you to journal about. I want you to really get specific and detailed about it. Again, if you're a little girl and do you remember, maybe rubbing up against stuff as a small child, rubbing up against your couch, or, letting the water run over your vulva if you were taking a bath, anything like that, humping up against your stuffed animals, anything like that, and somebody finding out about it or somebody having a conversation with you about it. What do you remember about that? And that's really going to be a good start to this, journaling about those things and getting as detailed as you possibly can. Um, and then and then I really want you to kind of dissect it. Think about your current sexual confidence, your current beliefs about sex and sexuality, and kind of pinpoint where those probably came from your past. Another really helpful thing to do is when you are thinking right now about your beliefs about sex, right? So one belief that I had previously was that if I had too high of a partner count, I would be considered a slut. People were going to call me a slut if I had sex with more than 5 people. I am a slut because I've had sex with more than 5 people, right? I am a prude because I've only had sex with people that I've been in relationships with, right? Like I was fucked if I did, and I was fucked if I didn't when it came to my beliefs. So thinking about your beliefs right now that you have about sex and that you have about, again, masturbation, and really figuring out where those come from. Well, all right, my friend, way back in the day, she started having sex really early on when we were in middle school, and everybody called her a slut, right? Everybody called her a slut. And I remember thinking like, gosh, I don't want people to talk about me that way. A slut was like such a terrible thing back in the day. Now I'm just like, fuck yeah, like give me all the slutty vibes. And I remember like thinking, shit, well, I don't want to be known as a slut. Then on the other hand, I had other friends that decided not to have sex until later in high school or even into college, and they were called prudes, right? So I was like, shit, like where do I want to fall in this category? So I thought, okay, I'll play it safe. I've always been monogamous. I've been in serial monogamous long-term relationships for the most part. And so that worked out for me. I just so happened to always be in relationships with people. There wasn't really a time. I can remember once where I was kind of like bouncing back and forth between people. But again, unless they quote unquote made it official with me, I didn't have sex with them. Would I do other stuff? Yeah, okay. But I would not have sex with them. I was so scared that if my body count was over, literally, if I couldn't count on one hand how many people I had sex with, I was going to be called a slut. And it was not until literally in my 30s, again, just starting to do this work, that I realized that is not fucking true. I look back at that poor girl and I look back at this girl that was like wanting to be able to explore herself more and wanting to have more sexual partners. And I knew I was going to do it in a safe way, but I didn't, because that belief was stuck in my head all the time. It would come down to me hooking up with somebody. I'd be like, no, if you hook up with this person, people are going to call you a slut. And I cared so deeply about that. And now in my adult life, I'm like, shit, man, I missed out on probably a lot of good sexual experiences, and I probably dodged a lot of terrible sexual experiences. But regardless, that belief, that is those two are like two very strong beliefs that have literally been present in most of my life. So think about those things for yourself. What beliefs come up for you, and literally write them out. Dissect them, think where they came from. Ask yourself, is this ultimately true? If I have sex with more than 5 people, is it ultimately true that I will be a slut? No. If I choose not to have sex with somebody, does that make me a prude? No. Those things are not ultimately true. So asking yourself, is this ultimately true? I'm going to tell you 99% of the time, it's not. It's not going to be true. So I hope this was helpful for you. As I said, Sexual Confidence Academy right now is getting ready to end here shortly. So the next round is likely not going to be available until 2022. I might have some special thing coming for you guys around the holiday time, so definitely stay tuned for that. But I'm very excited for the next endeavor that I'm working on currently, and that is a couples program that I will be launching here in the fall season, which it is officially September, so fall is just upon us. All right, so stay tuned. If you're not already following me on Instagram, follow me at the Rachel Main. And that's usually where I'm posting all of my sexual confidence things at, and just getting real with y'all. All right, shoot me a message if this helped with you, and go out there and keep being your sexually confident self, you guys. It's fucking in there. She's in there. He's in there. And they are begging for you to let them come out and play. I'll talk to you next week. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you loved it, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a thing. And if you loved it so fucking much, be sure to leave a 5-star review. I'll see you next week, and until then, keep owning your sexual self.